Hello and welcome. Here we explore ideas, stories, and perspectives that help us better understand the world around us.
Great to be here.
I saw a number this morning that I think explains why everyone I know feels so completely crazy at work lately.
Oh, yeah.
It's from a Microsoft Work Trend Index, and it stopped me cold. It shows this huge, almost comical disconnect.
Is this the confidence gap data?
Eh,
The one about paranoia?
that's the one.
Yeah.
So get this, 87% of workers say, I am productive, I am working hard, I'm getting things done.
Mhm.
But then you ask their leaders. Only 12% are actually confident their employees are working.
Wow. That is a staggering gap. So you have the people on the ground saying, I'm drowning, and management saying, I don't really believe you.
Exactly. Microsoft actually has a term for it, productivity paranoia, which to me just sounds like a diagnosis for bad management.
It's a harsh term, but it's pretty accurate. I mean, it describes this anxiety where leaders, because they can't physically see you at a desk anymore, they just assume you're, I don't know, watching Netflix.
And that paranoia is what we're here to unpack. Today's episode explores the hidden mental health and burnout costs of AI-driven productivity and hybrid work.
We'll talk about how AI-driven productivity tracking, digital surveillance, and constant connectivity fuel stress, anxiety, and burnout while reshaping how people work and are evaluated.
And how this directly affects. It directly affects mental health, emotional well-being, autonomy, focus, and trust at work, increasing burnout, insecurity, and cognitive overload.
And our mission here is really to move beyond the hype, the shiny marketing of AI efficiency. We need to unpack what researchers are calling Burnout 2.0.
Burnout 2.0.
Yeah, this isn't your grandfather's burnout from lifting heavy boxes. It's a whole new kind of exhaustion from algorithmic intensification and just the total loss of our mental boundaries.
Okay, so let's start there with that paranoia. If managers can't do the old walk by your cubicle trick, what are they doing instead?
Right, the classic management by walking around. It was crude, but it gave them visual confirmation. I see you typing, I assume work is happening.
So what replaced it?
Yeah.
Because it feels like something much worse.
Well, when hybrid work killed that visual check-in, managers, they panicked. So they turned to software. They swapped human eyes for algorithms to fill that void.
And the amount of digital noise we're now making to prove we're working is just insane. I was looking at the data since the pandemic started. Weekly meetings for the average Teams user are up 153%.
That's just not sustainable.
It's ridiculous. But here's the kicker. Because there are so many meetings, people aren't even in them. The data shows 42% of attendees are multitasking. They're sending emails and chats just to keep up with the work they can't do because they're stuck in a meeting.
It's a snake eating its own tail. You're in a meeting to look busy, but you're answering emails to actually be productive, and you're paying attention to neither.
Right.
This leads to a phenomenon the author Anne Helen Peterson calls LRPing at work.
Wait, LRPing, as in live action role playing, like with foam swords in the woods.
Sort of, yeah, but much sadder. It's performing the role of good, busy employee for the digital surveillance tools.
Ah.
Workers know they're being tracked on metrics like days active or emails sent, so they just do busy work. They generate digital exhaust to make sure the algorithm sees them as active.
So it's not about deep productive work. It's just about making sure your little status light stays green.
Exactly. We've shifted from measuring outcomes like, did you build a good thing, to just measuring activity. Did you click enough buttons? And that shift is a huge driver of this new kind of burnout.
Okay, that's the perfect transition to Burnout 2.0. I feel like we all use the word burnout, but the research you mentioned says this is different.
It is fundamentally different. The California Management Review makes a really clear distinction. Burnout 1.0 was industrial, physical. You worked in a factory, you were exhausted because your body literally gave out.
Right, but I sit in a chair all day, so why do I feel like I've run a marathon by 5 p.m.?
That's Burnout 2.0. It's not physical, it's cognitive. It's defined by what they call temporal fragmentation, your time being chopped up into tiny, useless bits and a complete collapse of boundaries.
The sources gave this case study of a guy named Rohit, and honestly, my blood pressure went up just reading it.
The Rohit example is,
Yeah.
it's painfully common.
So he's a mid-level manager. By 11 in the morning, he has already dealt with 60 Slack notifications. 60.
60. And that's on top of the AI dashboards flashing performance insights at him, plus back-to-back virtual meetings.
So he's not exhausted from lifting boxes.
No, he's exhausted from what are called micro demands and switching costs. Every time a notification pings, your brain has to drop what it was doing and load a whole new context. It takes energy. He spends as much energy just refocusing as he does actually working.
Death by 1,000 pings.
That's a good way to put it. Researchers call this whole phenomenon technostress. They break it down into a few things, like techno-overload, which is feeling forced to work faster and faster to keep up with the tech. And then there's techno-invasion.
Techno-invasion. That sounds like a bad sci-fi movie.
It feels like one sometimes. It's that phantom buzz in your pocket during dinner. It's the inability to watch a movie without checking email, just in case. The office is always with you.
And what about techno-insecurity?
That one's even deeper. It's the fear that you're going to lose your job, either to a machine or just to a coworker who's better at using the machine.
Wow.
And this isn't just a feeling. The study found that technostress directly accounts for about 12% of the variability in anxiety and almost 10% in depression. There's a direct line from the tools on your screen to your mental health.
And it's not just older workers struggling with this.
Yep.
I was shocked by the data from the Adaptivist group, showing 40% of Gen Z workers report stress from AI. These are the digital natives.
Right, but they're often in the roles most vulnerable to automation, and that fear triggers a really human, but also really counterproductive survival response: knowledge hoarding.
Hoarding. You mean like, I'm not going to show you my spreadsheet formula because it makes me valuable?
Exactly that. It's gatekeeping. The data shows 35% of knowledge workers are deliberately hoarding information to protect their jobs. 38% are reluctant to train their colleagues.
So instead of collaborating, it's every person's for themselves. I have to hide my skills so the robot or my coworker can't replace me.
It completely destroys the team sport aspect of knowledge work. Innovation just dies when everyone is in a silo of self-preservation.
You know, speaking of awkwardness, there's another place this is showing up. Meetings. We know people are in meetings for, what, over 4 hours a week?
Almost the same amount of time they spend socializing with friends, which is a sad thought.
It is. But now we have AI assistants, right? You can send your bot to a meeting for you.
The My AI Will Take Notes feature, yeah.
On paper, that sounds efficient. But 40% of staff think it's just plain rude.
It's a collision of social norms and efficiency, isn't it? If you send a bot, you're basically signaling this conversation isn't worth my actual time. But the person speaking wants to be heard, not just recorded by a machine.
It feels like we're stripping the humanity out of the workplace piece by piece. Which brings us to this idea of the black box.
This is the real core of algorithmic management.
The sources mentioned freelancers on platforms like Talent Finder who are, like, having panic attacks over their scores.
Right. Imagine playing a video game where the rules change constantly, but the game never tells you what the new rules are. You just see your score randomly drop.
That sounds like a nightmare.
That's the reality for a lot of gig workers, and it's creeping into corporate life. Why did my rating drop from 5 stars to 4.8? The algorithm decided. It won't tell you why. That lack of transparency is dehumanizing.
It creates what the research calls an informational power asymmetry. Right.
It's a bit of a mouthful, but yeah.
Break that down. It just means the boss knows everything and you know nothing.
Exactly. The system knows every keystroke you make, every minute you're idle. You, the worker, have no idea how that data is being used to judge you. It creates this psychological prison where you feel like you have to be perfect, always.
And this is why we're seeing things like the right to disconnect laws in France.
It's an attempt to legislate boundaries because the technology has completely obliterated the natural ones that used to exist.
Okay, I have to pause this here because this is getting incredibly dystopian. We have paranoia, fake work, burnout, black box algorithms. Is there any good news here? Can this actually be fixed?
Yes. Actually, yes, and the data backs this up. The same research found that 48% of workers who have AI properly embedded in their workplace feel energized by it.
Properly embedded is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence.
It is. It's the key. And the solution isn't more tech. It's a concept from the California Management Review called the Energy Equity Framework.
I like this. The idea is to treat human energy like it's a bank account.
Precisely. Your energy is finite. Leaders need to stop thinking of themselves as buying your time and start acting like energy architects. You can't just keep making withdrawals from the energy account without making deposits, or the whole system crashes.
So what does an energy architect actually do? Give me a concrete example.
Okay, let's look at the sauce firm in the notes. They were struggling with that fragmentation we talked about, constant pings. So they implemented focus blocks. From 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., all notifications were silenced.
Just quiet.
Forced institutional quiet, and the results were amazing. A 22% increase in focus time and a 15% drop in reported fatigue, just from 3 hours of no noise.
I would do anything for a 3-hour focus block.
Yeah.
Then you had the consulting firm with Deep Work Fridays.
This one is even more radical. They banned all internal meetings and emails on Fridays.
So, did people just take the day off?
No, they worked. But they did deep work, thinking work, without the constant interruption of, hey, quick question, email volume dropped by 30%, and idea generation actually soared. They came up with new business because they finally had the space to think.
It turns out if you let smart people think, they have good ideas. Who knew?
Shocking, I know.
The third one was my favorite, though. The retailer that did a digital sabbatical.
This one goes right at that techno-invasion problem. They found that even on vacation, people had this soft availability, always checking email, just in case.
Which means you're not actually on vacation.
Correct. So the company mandated 2 weeks, completely, totally unplugged, cut off their access.
And well-being scores went up 28%.
But here's the best part. It broke the dependency. The rest of the team learned how to function without that one person. It built resilience and trust because they realized the building wasn't going to burn down if someone went off the grid.
So silencing pings, blocking time, truly unplugging, these aren't fancy tech solutions. They're just human boundaries. But will my boss actually let me do any of this?
And that is the million-dollar question. The research from Tech UK points to the one single ingredient you need for any of this to work. Psychological safety.
Meaning?
Meaning it has to be safe to disconnect. It has to be okay to tell the algorithm and your boss no. If you have that techno insecurity we talked about, if you think missing one ping means you might lose your job, you will never, ever take that focus block.
So the technology isn't the problem or the solution. It's the culture.
The algorithm just serves the culture. If the culture is paranoid, the algorithm becomes a jailer. If the culture is built on trust, the algorithm can actually be a useful tool.
That feels like the whole thing right there. We started this deep dive talking about a crisis of trust between managers and employees.
And what we're seeing is that this crisis of trust is being masked as a crisis of productivity. We're using these incredibly powerful tools that could liberate us, but instead we're just using them to speed up the treadmill.
We're optimizing the human ride out of the loop.
We really, really are.
So as we wrap up, what's the one big question we should all be asking ourselves the next time we're staring at our screens?
I think we have to ask ourselves, is AI being used to free us for higher level thinking, or is it just speeding up the treadmill? Because if we don't design for recovery as much as we design for output, the algorithm won't just optimize our work, it will optimize us right out of well-being.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, HAAOCHI, and share it with someone who might find it meaningful. Your support helps keep this project alive. Take care, stay curious, HAS, and I'll talk to you again soon. Goodbye.